Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into the fascinating world of a plant often celebrated, maybe even hyped up, as the miracle tree.
Ah, yes, Moringa oleifera.
That's the one. And our mission here really is to explore what the actual research, the available sources tell us about it, kind of sorting the science from the sensation.
We've looked at quite a few research papers, reviews, trying to get a balanced picture of its uses, its potential.
Right. And look, before we even start, we absolutely have to put this up front, this deep dive. It's purely for information,
Sure.
okay, based on the stuff we read.
Definitely. It is not medical advice. You always need to talk to a qualified healthcare professional before making any health decisions.
Especially if you're thinking about supplements or, if you have health conditions already, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding or taking medications, it's crucial.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so disclaimer done. The hook is, well, this plant has been used in folk medicine for ages, centuries even, across the tropics. But what's the modern science say? What gives it this miracle reputation?
That's the big question, isn't it? So let's start with the basics. What is Moringa oleifera?
Okay.
It's a tree, grows pretty fast, actually, native to northern India, the Himalayan foothills. But now you find it all over the tropics and subtropics, Asia, Africa.
People call it other things too, right? I saw drumstick tree.
Yeah, for the long seed pods. Or horseradish tree. Apparently the roots have that kind of pungent taste.
Huh. And Ben oil tree.
Right, that's from the oil pressed from the seeds. And traditionally, well, people used basically everything. Leaves, flowers, seeds, roots, even the bark and pods.
For all sorts of remedies.
Yeah, folk medicine used it for digestion issues, inflammation, you name it. A real cure-all, traditionally speaking.
Okay, so tradition says it's special.
Mm-hmm.
What about the science? What's in it? The nutrition part seems pretty wild from the research I saw.
Oh, it definitely stands out there. According to the studies, it's incredibly nutrient-dense, especially the leaves.
The comparisons are kind of staggering. Some research suggests the leaves have way more vitamin C than oranges, like potentially 7 times more.
Yeah, figures like that pop up. And similar things for potassium, maybe as much as bananas, or even more, according to some sources. Then there's calcium.
Or than milk, some studies claim.
Potentially, yeah. And iron, supposedly heaps more than spinach, though it's non-heme iron, which is worth noting.
Okay, so less easily absorbed, maybe.
A bit, yeah. And magnesium, too, the numbers thrown around are huge compared to, say, eggs. Plus, you've got B vitamins like B6, riboflavin, B2, vitamin A from beta-carotene.
Wow. And protein. I saw mentions of that too.
Yes, pretty high protein content for leaves, potentially twice that of milk, some sources suggest, and crucially, it seems to contain all the essential amino acids.
That's pretty significant for a plant, especially like you said, for plant-based diets or where protein's scarce.
Exactly. That nutritional profile is a big reason it's valued, particularly in developing countries fighting malnutrition. It's just packed with the essentials.
Okay, sounds amazing, but is there, a downside? Anything else in there we should know about?
Well, yeah, the research points out something important. The leaves also contain things called anti-nutrients.
Anti-nutrients.
Yeah.
Like oxalate and phytate.
Those are the main ones, yeah. And they can kind of interfere with your body absorbing some of the good stuff.
So they bind to the minerals, the protein.
Exactly. They might reduce how much you actually get out of the leaves. And it's also worth saying, those dried leaf supplements,
Yeah.
studies suggest they might not deliver the massive nutrient doses those comparisons imply, compared to just eating a varied, balanced diet with whole foods.
Right. Context matters.
Yeah.
How you consume it. Okay, so nutrients are one thing. What about other compounds? The research mentions bioactive stuff.
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting. Beyond just vitamins and minerals, researchers have found moringa is loaded with these bioactive plant compounds.
Okay, like what are we talking about here?
Well, various types, things like flavonoids, phenolics, isothiocyanates. Specific names you might see are quercetin, chlorogenic acid, things like that.
And these are the compounds thought to give it its potential health effects.
That's the idea, yeah. These are the chemicals researchers are focusing on for things like antioxidant activity or anti-inflammatory potential.
Okay, let's get into that then. What potential benefits are being studied? Antioxidants seem like a big one.
Huge focus. Research suggests moringa is packed with antioxidants. These compounds help protect your cells from damage, oxidative stress, sort of like cellular rust proofing.
And that helps with, well, overall cell health, maybe the immune system.
Potentially, yeah. Protecting cells is fundamental. And some research specifically looks at oxidative stress from things like UV light, which, as you mentioned, might link to skin health.
Right. And I think I saw some specific antioxidants like quercetin might be studied for blood pressure.
Yes, that's another angle. Certain compounds are being investigated for roles in vascular health, potentially helping manage blood pressure.
Okay, interesting. What about inflammation? That's always a big topic.
It is, and research does suggest some compounds in moringa might have anti-inflammatory effects.
How are they studying that?
A lot of it is lab work, test tubes, or animal models, looking at whether leaf extracts can reduce markers of inflammation, like swelling or redness in some models.
So it might help modulate that inflammatory response.
That's the theory being tested. And studies suggest the leaves seem to have the highest concentration of these compounds compared to, say, the seeds or pods.
But it sounds like for humans, this is still pretty early days, right?
Very much so. Promising signals in the lab, but we need those human trials to really know if it works and how.
Got it. What about other common concerns like blood sugar or cholesterol?
Also areas of active research. Some early studies hint that certain compounds, maybe even insulin-like proteins in moringa, could help lower blood sugar.
Help by helping process sugar better.
Potentially, or maybe affecting insulin release. The mechanisms aren't fully clear yet. And similarly for cholesterol, research suggests it might have properties to help lower cholesterol and triglycerides.
Like improving the good HDL and lowering the bad LDL.
Some studies have looked at that possibility, yes.
So again, potential links that align with some traditional uses.
Exactly. But, and this is a big but, based on the sources for both blood sugar and cholesterol, most of the evidence we have right now comes from animal studies.
So we can't just assume it works the same in people.
Definitely not. We need much more solid human research there.
Are there other things researchers are looking into? It seems like the traditional uses were so broad.
They were, and that's reflected in the research. People are looking at lots of possibilities, though often at very preliminary stages.
Like what?
Things like anti-cancer effects. Some lab studies showed leaf extracts slowing pancreatic cancer cell growth, for example, or effects on memory, maybe linked to those antioxidants protecting brain cells.
Okay.
There's also research, again, in animals, suggesting it might protect against certain types of toxicity, like arsenic.
Wow. Okay. But we don't know if that applies to humans.
Not yet, no. And then there's a whole list of other things. Potential support for liver health, stomach ulcers, asthma, wound healing, even things like weight loss or anti-acne properties are being explored.
Sounds like a very wide net, exploring lots of avenues.
It is, but it's really crucial for listeners to grasp that for many of these areas, cancer, memory, toxin protection, skin stuff, the evidence is mainly from lab tests or animal studies right now.
So interesting leads for scientists, but not proven benefits for us yet.
Precisely. They point towards where future research might go, but they're far from confirmed.
Okay. This is all fascinating, but it leads us to something really critical. Safety.
Yeah.
What does the research say about just eating this stuff?
Yes, super important. According to the research, eating the leaves or the young seed pods, like vegetables, seems generally okay for most people.
But I sense a but coming.
A big one. The sources are very clear. Eating the bark or the pulp can be dangerous.
Dangerous how?
Especially, and this is critically important, for pregnant women.
Why specifically?
Research shows chemicals in the bark can actually cause the uterus to contract. This poses a serious risk of miscarriage.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge warning.
Absolutely. Because of that risk, the advice based on research is to avoid moringa entirely if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. Just steer clear.
Got it. A very clear message there. Now, what about all those powders and capsules you see everywhere? The supplements.
Right. Another key point from the research is how these are regulated, or rather, how they aren't, usually.
Meaning?
Dietary supplements, including moringa powders or pills, generally aren't regulated by bodies like the FDA with the same strictness as drugs or even conventional foods.
So the companies don't have to prove they work or are even safe.
Not in the same way, no. There often isn't a standard dose backed by rigorous trials, and safety proof isn't required before selling. You're relying a lot on the manufacturer.
Okay. And do they interact with anything?
That's another potential issue the research flags. Moringa might interact with certain medications.
Like which ones?
Particularly drugs for diabetes, high blood pressure, and also thyroid medications.
Which circles back to what you said at the start, doesn't it?
Exactly. You must talk to your doctor before trying moringa, especially if you take any medications or have any health conditions. They know your situation.
Non-negotiable.
Totally. And the research also points out we don't have much data on long-term use in humans. One review mentioned a possible suggested upper limit, maybe around 70 milligrams a day, to avoid potential toxin issues. But honestly, the long-term safety picture in people is still pretty blurry.
And even if there are benefits, how long they might take to show up.
That varies wildly too, right? More research needed there as well.
Always more research needed, it seems.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. After this deep dive, what does this mean for you, the listener?
Well, hopefully it gives a clearer picture than just that miracle tree label. The research definitely confirms it's nutritionally impressive, packed with vitamins, minerals, protein.
And it does have all those bioactive compounds scientists are excited about, studying them for antioxidant effects, anti-inflammatory potential, maybe helping with blood sugar, cholesterol. Right. But, and this is the crucial takeaway, while the traditional use is there and the early science is promising, a lot of that science is still basic. Lab studies, animal models.
We really need more robust human trials to know for sure about many of these hoped-for benefits.
Exactly. So understanding the research helps you sift through the hype. You can appreciate the nutritional density, see the potential being explored, but also grasp the limits of the current evidence.
And, most importantly, prioritize safety. Knowing the risks, especially with pregnancy, and the absolute need to talk to a doctor before trying it, particularly as a supplement.
It's about that balanced view. Respect the tradition, follow the science, but stay grounded in the confirmed facts and safety data we have now.
Well put. So as we wrap up, thinking about plants like moringa, with such a long history of use and now modern science trying to figure them out, it does make you wonder, doesn't it?
How so?
Just as a how much potential for supporting our health might still be out there in nature undiscovered or just not fully validated yet by science.
That's definitely something to think about. Until our next deep dive.